Yeah, good evening, viewers. My name is Sayulua Joshua, and I welcome you to the State of the Nation. And today, our guest is Dame Julie Okah-Donli. She is the DG NAPTIP, and she will be discussing with us the issues of human trafficking, child abuse within and outside our shores, as well as NAPTIP's strides in dealing with these issues and more. Our viewers can join us and interact with us or send their questions on while she is talking so that you can get answers to whatsoever you want to ask her. And you can do that on Facebook at Official Aspheric News, Twitter at Aspheric News, Instagram at aspheric.news, on YouTube AsphericTV, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel for more programs. Also send us SMS on 080 9999 049. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And so quickly, tell us about the core purpose of
Can't hear you. It's frozen.
Let me call the other guy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, what did you say?
I said, tell us about the core purpose of NAPTIP.
Oh, thank you very much. NAPTIP means the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, and it was created by the federal government of Nigeria in 2003 in response to the disturbing issues of human trafficking. And later on in 2015, we were given an additional mandate to fight all forms of violence and sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria, especially within the FCT. NAPTIP is a law enforcement agency and can also be described as a humanitarian agency in the sense that we have the powers to arrest, to rescue, to prosecute, and to rehabilitate victims of trafficking and victims of sexual and gender-based violence. And so we have all of these. We are the only agency that has this very unique mandate to prosecute and as well as rehabilitate victims. Our agency, we have 9 offices and the headquarters in Abuja. Every office has got a shelter attached to it, because in this shelter we have trained counselors, trained nurses, all staff of NAPTIP, whose job it is to counsel victim of trafficking that goes through the shelter and every victim of sexual and gender-based violence.
The Director General, what have you brought to the table? How that now?
I didn't get the question. What did you say?
I said, since you assume the post of the Director General, what have you brought to the table and how has that shaped NAPTIP?
Wow. When I came to NAPTIP, the first thing that for me, the first area of priority was awareness. I ensured that we carried out massive awareness campaigns in schools, in churches, in the mosque. We set up human trafficking task forces in about 5 states. But for COVID, we would have had about 9 more states before the end of the year, and we're still going to do that. I ensured that we had joint investigations and joint operations with countries at the destination countries. We had joint investigations and joint operations with UK, with America, with Spain, with the Netherlands, so many countries like that. For the first time, NAPTIP officers worked closely with the British Crime Agency in the UK airports, in Gatwick and Heathrow airports, and it was a very successful operation. And so, you know, for me, our prevention is better than cure. We've carried awareness to the highest level. We've finished drafting the school curricula for primary and secondary school. We finished with it, and it's just for the Ministry of Education to infuse it in the primary and secondary school curricula. So these are just a few things that we've done. In fact, we've done so much, and it will take the whole day if I start talking about them.
Okay, but for you now, do you think this awareness has gotten to a lot of people? Do you think a lot of people really know what NAPTIP is doing as an organization or as an agency?
Yes, you see, like I keep saying, the fight against human trafficking and sexual and gender-based violence is a fight that should involve the whole of society and the whole of government. Unfortunately, a lot of people still think that it is a NAPTIP problem. Everyone has a role to play, including yourself asking this question. You know, because, for example, the community leaders have a role to play, faith-based organizations, CSOs, NGOs, everyone has a role to play, parents, and so on and so forth. Reason being that NAPTIP cannot go everywhere. We cannot possibly go around all the communities, and that's why the state government has a role to play, as well as the local government. Everyone has a role to play. It is their responsibility to make sure that they take this awareness into all the communities within their states. If everybody works together and plays their role, including the media, you know, I mean, it will go a long way. Social media bloggers are there, they have a role to play. Nollywood is there, they have a role to play. The media has a role to play, the print media. Everyone has a role to play. It's a fight that involves the whole of society and the whole of government. So NAPTIP alone cannot do it. Absolutely impossible.
Now, you made mention of the movie industry. Now, do you think from what we are seeing on the movie scene, like when you see some show of use of drugs and alcohol or some nude sites, do you think that should be acceptable or accepted in the industry, looking at how the issue of rape and other molestations or abuses are increasing in the society?
Yeah, the Nigerian movie industry has a very big role to play, in the sense that movies like that portray negativity should not be allowed. I mean, they should stop, you know, portraying such, you know, things as rape, such scenes in their movies. The end result of it should be trying to teach the perpetrator a lesson by making sure that the perpetrators end up in jail. So that might be all right. But it was not all right if they portray such scenes and leave it at that, you know, as like an happy ending, you know. So because the kind of things that people see, people are moved by what they see. So it's very important that when the movie industry are shooting movies, they are very careful the kind of scenes that they portray.
We can see that Western civilization is gradually overshadowing our African ethics. Do you think adopting the Western civilization is the best option, looking at how these civilizations are attacked with some negative consequences?
Well, to an extent, civilization can be positive, civilization can be negative. You feed, you know, it depends on the food that your mind is fed with from home. Charity begins at home. Parents have a role to play, you know, in bringing up all their children, boys and girls alike. I mean, if you feed the negative aspect of your mind, of course, the negative aspect will overshadow the positive aspect. So it is for parents to feed the positive aspect in the minds of their children, and for the children to grow up, you know, with that food, that positive food, and roll with it. A lot of it, you know, parents have a role to play. Parental negligence has also formed most of the problems we see. So parents have a role to play majorly, yeah.
From what you just said now, what is the role of NAPTIP, or what has NAPTIP done as regards to parents' engagement with their children when it comes to training them up in the right way?
Well, honestly, in fairness to NAPTIP, I don't think we should be training parents how to raise their children. We can only give tips to parents on things not to do. Yes, by way of awareness campaigns during sensitization, every sensitization I have ever gone for, I always talk to parents on things that they do that they shouldn't be doing. Parents Teachers Association, they should always have meetings from time to time where NAPTIP and NGOs can come and give them some tips on how to, on some things that they've been ignoring that they should take very seriously. For example, you have parents sending their children to school with only their drivers without an adult female supervision. This is wrong. You have parents who leave their children at home with lesson teachers. You have parents who leave their children at home with cooks who are male cooks, with drivers, with house boys, with security men. You have parents who are eager to push their children out to spend holidays with relations and family friends. 85% of rape cases have had to do with family friends, the mother's brother, the father's brother, the cousins, and all of that. So parents need to watch their children very closely, whether the male or the female, because the male are not exempted from this. A lot of male children are also raped and abused. So parents have to take a very close look and monitor their children very closely. Most importantly, they need to educate the children. Sex education from parents to children is the most important kind of education, because if the parents shy away from sex education, someone else will teach the children sex, and in a very bad way. So it's very important that right from when the child can speak, you tell the child what is good and what is wrong. You tell the child what to do and what not to do. You tell the child not to call anybody uncle or auntie, because calling people uncle or auntie gives them a very false sense of protection, because they think in their eyes their aunties or uncles can do no wrong. So if, for example, somebody who is like a lesson teacher or a nanny or a driver is like Mr. Audu, for example, they should call him Mr. Audu. He's not their uncle. He's not the father's brother. English language tells us that your uncle is your father's brother or your mother's brother. But when they start getting too comfortable saying uncle, auntie, it gives them this this false sense of protection. And one has to be very, very careful what you tell your children to call people around you, because that might be to their detriment.
Thank you very much for that. Now, NAPTIP is known as an agency that fights against human trafficking, child abuse, child trafficking, and molestation and rape. What has NAPTIP done in eradicating these menace in the society?
Well, we've carried out a lot of awareness campaigns, which is key, like I said. We've arrested a lot of perpetrators. We've rescued children as well. They've gone through our shelter. We've rehabilitated them. Some of them have even gone through primary, secondary school, and university, courtesy of NAPTIP. Some of them are now graduates. 5 of them graduated under the tutelage of NAPTIP, and 3 of them right now, as I speak to you, are now full officers working with NAPTIP.
All right. Now, you talked about NAPTIP sending them to school. What about in cases whereby we have a kind of sexual harassment, like from men who harasses women sexually? What judgment or what are the consequences faced by those people who involve in such acts?
Well, you see, the truth is that it's an offense to harass anyone sexually. There's one thing for it to be an offense. There's another thing for the person involved to report. A lot of people don't report sexual harassment. I'm happy that the lawmakers have come up with something now for all the randy lecturers, especially in the universities, because most of them are guilty of harassing students in their schools. And I'm sure that this law will be applicable everywhere, not just in the schools, but also not just in the universities, even in the primary, secondary schools, and even in offices. I can tell you that even in workplaces, there's a lot of sexual harassment where maybe the directors can try to take advantage of younger staff and all of that. So it's the way to go, because from sexual harassment, it can easily lead to rape. You know, I mean, if the man who is harassing a lady sexually is found alone in the office with that girl, he can do anything. Just touching alone is a sexual harassment. He doesn't need to have a rape or anything. Just touching any part of the body without permission is sexual harassment, and that's an offense.
All right. And now, talking about reporting such cases, do you really think the Nigerian police force or any of the law enforcement agents really take such reports serious? Because we have seen situations whereby some people report such cases but end up being they are already victim of such abuse, and they end up still becoming the victim of arrest from the people they report to. What do you think can be done to encourage more disclosure of such acts and to ensure the victim gets the right justice he or she deserves? Amy, Daisy, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Before we get back on the program, please, you can send us your SMS to ask questions or to tell us your opinion concerning what we are discussing here on 08099990549. Dizzy, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Israel.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Problem is theirs because
Yeah, the network is terrible.
But can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you. You've been off for a long time.
Yeah. So I asked a question. I said, from what you said, I said, in the issue of reporting such cases, because a lot of people get scared most times to report such cases in order not to be arrested, or when they report, the person in question who carried out such harassment ends up being free instead of being judged for doing such a thing. What is NAPTIP doing in order to encourage disclosure of such acts by the victims?
First of all, every report is treated with confidentiality and professionalism as well. We ensure that the victims are well protected. That is why we have shelters. When we have victims who report and they are a little bit scared for their security, their safety, we keep them in the shelters and we go after the perpetrators and we make sure that we file the cases in court and prosecute them. There shouldn't be any need to be afraid of anything. You know, these perpetrators have been getting away with impunity. They are taking advantage of the fact that people get scared to report. If a case is reported and the perpetrator starts harassing the victim, that is an offense. We go after them again. And, you know, in fact, if the perpetrator is on bail, that alone can, you know, can destroy, can breach the bail conditions. And of course, we'll go after the perpetrator again. So yes, we should learn to break the culture of silence. There's nothing to be scared of, and there's nothing to feel stigmatized about. As a matter of fact, we are moving now to amend the law to make stigmatization an offense. Now, anybody who stigmatizes a victim will be considered to have committed an offense. So there are so many things that we're proposing to amend the law, and I know that by the time we do that, you know, we'll go a long way to end this culture of silence due to fear or harassment or stigmatization.
All right, thank you very much for that. What can you say is the cause of or the reasons behind rape, child abuse, and molestation, as well as human trafficking and bullying?
There is no reason why anyone should traffic a human being or rape a human being. The only reason that I can attribute to it is greed. Greed on the part of the trafficker, selfishness, you know, on the part of the rapist, for example. You know, there's this, you know, their mentality that a woman needs to be conquered, physically, sexually, and otherwise. Unfortunately, most of these people, you need to go back to their background, their upbringing. Too much attention was, you know, most of the time paid on the boys. They make the boys to think that they are kings. Even when they have an older sister, some of them don't even respect the older sister. They will tell you, I am the man, even if they are the younger ones. They talk to their sisters with so much disdain and disrespect. They tell you that, look, if anything happens, I will inherit and not you. So some of these cultural practices, you know, that are imbibed in these men have made them not to have respect or regards for women, to the extent that they just see a woman as a commodity, as their personal property, that they can do and undo whatever they want to do with them. Some of them just have sick fantasies, you know, that they started with right from when they were small and went on unchecked. They were not counseled. And some of them are addicted to pornography. When you're addicted to pornography, what else do you think of? All you think of is sex. So, you know, some of them have this addiction to pornography, addiction to masturbation, you know, and things like that, you know, and they play out their fantasies by raping these girls. Unfortunately, they now find out that they've been getting away with it because of this culture of silence. The girls do not report, and so they just continue. And before you know it, they get used to it and they get mad like that. You know, when you get used to something, it now becomes part and parcel of you. That's just simply how you know, rapists become rape monsters. And of course, the traffickers, they know that they suppress their victims through threats, you know, and so they make sure that they control the rights, the victims' movements, they control everything about the victim through threats. And so that is how they just get away with it. Theirs is just, you know, sheer greed on the part of them, and taking advantage of the fact that the victims are vulnerable by virtue of their status. Maybe they are ignorant, they don't know better, or their families, they come from very poor families, and the parents are deceived that they will be giving them jobs that can take care of the family, and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much. Now, let me quickly say something concerning what you just said now. It is obvious that a lot of women have the low self-esteem when it comes to how they look. Now, what is NAPTIP really doing about that in order to orientate women for them to know that no matter how you look, there is somebody who just cherish the way you are instead of giving yourself out anyhow to people. What is NAPTIP doing about that?
Well, you see, unfortunately, everybody thinks that everything lies on NAPTIP's head. Now we have to teach women to be confident. We have to counsel women with a very low self-esteem to believe in themselves. Yes, we do that, but don't forget the family members, they have a role to play. The women themselves have a role to play. I mean, no one loves you better than you love yourself. So that to start from there, women should begin to have some more confidence in themselves. They shouldn't have any low self-esteem. You find out that a lot of men batter their wives. They batter their wives every day. But the wives have come to accept it. They think it's a way of life. No, 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 no. It is not a way of life. Because if we don't do something about it, one day people will just come and take your dead body out of the house. So it is not okay for any man to hit you. It is not okay for any man to rape you. I mean, everyone should love themselves. Every woman, even men, should feel very confident about in their skin. You should be confident about the way you look. You should be confident in everything you do. So yes, when we carry out awareness campaigns, we tell women, you need to be confident. We had a campaign. It's called the Not for Sale campaign. It was a communication strategy. I mean, to bring women and men up to speed, to make them feel confident in themselves, to, bring up their self-esteem, to know that, look, you're not a commodity and you're not for sale. We had people who were almost trafficked speak to them in the videos. We had people who were actually trafficked as well share their stories, their experiences, and share their present situation to show that yes, we may have made a mistake, but now here we are. We are very confident and we are doing very well right here in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much. Now, let's talk about bullying because I see that there's a little or no discussion about bullying. But it's obvious that in the society, there's bullying in almost every area. What do you think should be done to get this bullying mindset out of the minds of the people from your own view?
Bullying, you mean? You're throwing questions at me. I throw it back again. So yeah, I keep going back to the parents. Every parent has a duty to bring up their children to have confidence in themselves, to tell their children not to be swayed by any bully, first and foremost, to tell a child to stand up to any bully, because when you're confident, trust me, no one can bully you. I went through primary and secondary schools. We saw quite a number of bullies like that. But because of the way I was brought up, nobody could bully me. I didn't see anyone as being better than me. That's how it starts. So the parents need to bring up your children to have confidence in themselves, to believe in their self-worth. Schools have a role to play as well. Schools should take action against bullies. Every person that is found to be a bully should be suspended and then dismissed if the bullying continues. Because bullying has a very, very bad effect on the minds of children. Bullying causes a lot of mental damage to children. Some children, as a result of being bullied, committed suicide. Some of them became very withdrawn. They lost confidence in themselves. They became antisocial. So the schools have a role to play. The schools must have counselors who will counsel children who are bullied, who are subjected to bullying, who will call the parents of children who are bullies and talk to them, because it all starts from the parents. They see the way the parents talk down on other people. They see the way the parents treat their house helps. And so they just grow with it and continue in that bad light. So yes, we have a lot to do. The parents have a lot to do. The schools have a lot to do. The children themselves need to be confident in themselves. And of course, bullying has to be taken very seriously. Bullying should be seen as a very serious crime. A serious crime against humanity and should be punished.
All right, thank you very much for that. Now, do you think the government should set up a policy against bullying?
Well, I think it's a very serious problem. I think it's a very serious problem, and the schools actually should, parents and the schools should take it up, at least even within the Ministry of Education. It's something that, you know, should be as a matter of government policy. Yes, it's very important. It should be as a matter of policy that anybody who is bullied will get counseling from the school. The parents will be summoned, and if it happens again, the child will be dismissed from that school. I think they should begin to send a very strong signal. Yes, it is very important that it becomes a government policy.
All right. Is rape targeted at a specific gender, or are both genders victims of such acts? And how can these issues be ridded of our society?
Rape, as a lot of people think, that rape is only applicable to women and girls. But I can tell you today that everybody can be a victim of rape. Men, boys, girls, and women as well can be victims of rape. First of all, it's very important that parents know that boys can also be victims of rape, and accord them equal protection and care, just as the girls, when it comes to protecting them. Very, very important. It's also important to have awareness campaigns for everyone to know that they can be victims of rape, and for them to know what to do in the events that they are raped. There's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to be stigmatized about. The only way you can get justice is when you report cases of rape and the perpetrators are brought to book. The only thing we can do, honestly, is to prevent it by carrying out awareness campaigns and to report cases of rape and ensure that the perpetrators are prosecuted.
All right. Now, let's talk about the consequences attached to human trafficking. What are the consequences for anyone caught in the act of human trafficking?
Anyone caught in the act of human trafficking, of course, will be prosecuted. So far, we've prosecuted about 423. We've had 443 convictions. That means they are in jail right now. We have a lot of cases that are still in court, scattered all over Nigeria, cases being prosecuted in court. And of course, the consequences are, the minimum is 5 years imprisonment plus imposition of fine. So yes, if you are caught in human trafficking, you go to jail, and your properties will be seized, your accounts will be frozen. These are some of the consequences of being prosecuted or convicted for human trafficking.
Okay. Now, do you think NAPTIP should make these consequences in the form of adverts or commercials for those who intend or who are having it in mind to get into such, for them to know what lies ahead if they get into such acts and they get caught?
Yes, I can throw it back to you. You can help us to come up with short videos to tell the human traffickers the consequences of their acts, and put it all over social media, put it everywhere. Everyone has a role to play. The media has a role, CSO, NGOs, everyone has a role to play. So yes, it's a good idea, and you're welcome to join us in the campaign against human trafficking.
All right, thank you very much. Now, according to some, they say most women are raped due to their mode of dressing. Would you say they are correct? And if yes or no, what would you say about the indecent dressing by some women?
I would say that anyone who blames a woman was raped because of her mode of dressing will be arrested and prosecuted as a potential rapist, or a rapist that has not yet been caught, or aiding and abetting rapist, because we are about to amend the law, so people should be very careful what they say. If a man is walking naked on the streets, everybody will avoid him and cross the road and call him a madman, and they will be seeking help for him to go to a mental hospital. So if you see a woman walking naked, avoid her, cross the road, call her a mad woman, and seek help for her to be taken to a mental hospital. Under no condition should anyone think that because a woman is not well dressed, I don't know what they mean by not well dressed or indecent dressing. Under no circumstance should anyone justify raping any woman because of her so-called indecent dressing. It's none of your business how an adult woman chooses to dress. And then if you attempt to rape a woman based on that, of course, you face the consequences of your act.
All right. And so for the viewers out there, just as you've heard from the DG, in case know anybody who is into such acts and blames it on how the woman dresses, just let that person know that NAPTIP is watching. All right, now, how is NAPTIP handling the issues of domestic violence in families? And how can those suffering from such violence get the necessary support from NAPTIP?
We've had a lot of cases of domestic violence involving especially women and children. We've rescued them. We've prosecuted quite a number of these abusers, wife beaters and abusers, children abusers, and all of that. We've had lots of cases like that. We usually prosecute them. Unfortunately, the same wives, who come back later to say they want to settle with their husbands and they don't want to prosecute their husbands. But going forward, we are no longer going to withdraw the cases at this level. We'll go ahead and prosecute, and if anybody wants to settle, they can go to courts and settle. NAPTIP will no longer entertain any withdrawal of cases because it has gotten to a stage where there's so much impunity going on now with cases of domestic violence. So these are the things that we've seen. We've settled quite a number of that, especially during the COVID period. We had a lot of cases of domestic violence. I think the men were just tired of seeing the faces of their wives. They are probably not in love with their wives anymore, or they are just, tired of seeing their wives' faces, which shouldn't be so. That was a period where we expected men to bond closely with their wives and their children, but some men used that opportunity to turn their wives into their punching bags because they started suffering from cabin fever. Reason being that most of them don't stay in one place. They're just going from place to place, and they just got so sick of sitting at home because they're not used to being at home with their wives. So yes, we had cases like that, and we did a lot of rescues during the period, and we're still doing a lot of rescues going forward.
All right. Do you think domestic violence is attached to a mental condition, or is just something that has to do with how the person views life?
Most of the time, like I said, parental negligence is the way the parents have brought up the men to think that they are lords of women. They don't do any house chores. The girls do the chores. They don't have respect for their older sisters because they think that they are the men of the house and they can talk to women anyhow. They beat up women. The mothers don't see anything wrong with it. They slap their sisters. The mothers don't say anything. Mainly about upbringing. And it now begins to affect them mentally, because it gets into their heads and they get used to it. And before you know it, they take it to another level. They are unable to do anything about it. Cultural practices, again, where widows are not allowed to inherit, their heads are shaved, they are not allowed to inherit anything, they are subjected to female genital mutilation. It's always about the women who are always subjected to the bad things. So when these men grow up to think that they can conquer a woman physically, emotionally, mentally, it just becomes a way of life. And they continue like that. Some of them now it now becomes a mental problem for the men. But it's not an excuse, because if you have a mental problem that will make you to rape or make you to be violent against anyone, we'll first treat you in the mental hospital. From there, we'll send you to prison. It's as simple as that. So having a mental problem or whatever is no excuse.
All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the use of drugs. Is NAPTIP carrying out any orientation on the use of drugs, or what is NAPTIP doing in this regard?
NAPTIP cannot do the job of everybody. We have nothing to do with drugs. It's not our business. We have the Law and Drug Enforcement Agency, and I'm sure the Director General, my colleague, is up to speed on that. So I don't think that we should delve into situations of drugs. There's something that is obvious. There is a relationship between drugs and human trafficking because unfortunately victims of trafficking are usually used against their will to traffic drugs, and in the process they are caught. Unfortunately, they are prosecuted, but I'm sure the agencies can differentiate between a drug courier and a victim of trafficking that was forced, hopefully, that was forced to traffic drugs. I believe that they are making the distinction between those two so that we don't have cases of double jeopardy where a victim of trafficking subjected to traffic drugs is further re-traumatized and re-victimized.
Okay. Is NAPTIP in partnership with the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency as regards to people used for drug trafficking?
Most of the drug trafficking occurs outside Nigeria, not within Nigeria. So, of course, I mean, we don't have that kind of relationship because if it was within Nigeria, yes, of course, we would. But if it's something that usually takes place outside Nigeria, then of course the NDLEA does not have jurisdiction outside Nigeria for NAPTIP to start collaborating with them. But I'm sure they are collaborating with partners, their colleagues outside of Nigeria who they can work closely with in that regards.
Okay. Now let's talk about the international partnership. Is NAPTIP partnering any international organization in areas of human trafficking, child abuse, and all that has to do with the human rights?
Absolutely. We partner with a lot of international agencies and NGOs, CSOs, law enforcement agencies as well, all over the world and within Nigeria.
All right, now let's talk about the families here. In some families, either the mother or the father is sometimes the victim of sexual harassment. How does NAPTIP handle such cases, and how can the victim be encouraged to expose such abuses?
You need to give me an example of what you mean.
Like a situation where, because sometimes you hear a man say is forcing his wife to have a sexual intercourse with her, or sometimes a man, the woman is doing the other way around.
I have never heard of a woman forcing her husband. It's always the other way around. Unfortunately, because if you force a man and he's not in the mood, there's absolutely nothing you can do. It is the other way around, because even when you force a woman who is not in the mood, the men usually force themselves on the woman. Unfortunately, in our laws, it is not yet a crime for a man to rape his wife, but I can tell you that a lot of men rape their wives, and this is very wrong. And I hope that the laws can be amended, because a man has no right to rape his wife. A woman's body must be ready to receive a man. And by forcing yourself to rape her, you're going to cause her a lot of harm, injury, mentally, physically, and even spiritually. So I don't think that should be encouraged. I don't think men should force their wives. Just like the wife respects you when you tell she's in the mood and you tell her, sorry, I am tired, you should also give your wife maximum respect by understanding, because she also goes to work like you. She looks after the children, she cooks your food, she cleans the house. So at the end of the day, she's even doing much more work than you. So if your wife tells you she's tired, you have to respect her. You need to give her the respect by listening to her rather than forcing yourself. It destroys marriages when you do that, because you just show that you don't have any regards for your wife.
All right. So how can you encourage such people to expose, since now the agency is encouraging people, rape victims, and now we also understand from what you're saying that some men also rape their wives. So what should such victims that are raped by their husbands do? And if they expose such, will the husband go through same will he also get same justice, just like somebody who is who raped?
I just explained to you some time ago that under our law does not recognize a man as raping his wife. But what a woman can do is to seek counseling for both the husband and the wife. Perhaps if they meet someone, to counsel both of them, he may change his ways and begin to respect his wife more, respect her feelings more. I mean, rape is not, sex is not something that one should endure. It's something that one should enjoy. If a woman begins to endure sex, trust me, there's no relationship. And if there's no relationship, the marriage is as good as dead. So perhaps the woman should then get a counselor to counsel both of them so that he can think differently and stop thinking like a rapist. Rather, I should think like a lover, lovingly having sexual intercourse with his wife and not having it the rough way like a rapist will do to a woman.
Okay. How does NAPTIP handle cases of abuse, torture, and slavery of Nigerians in diaspora? Recently, we've seen such cases in rising in countries like Oman, Bahrain, Egypt. How do you address that?
Well, NAPTIP works very closely with all the embassies, especially in the endemic countries. And we work closely with the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, as well as the international organizations outside Nigeria. We work with the embassies as well. What we do is when we get reports, we don't even wait for us to reports to come to us officially. Even when we see cases reported on the internet, on the social media, for example, on WhatsApp groups and all of that, we are very proactive. We swing into action and then we start engaging. We engage with the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs. We engage with the embassies in that country. We engage with the ambassadors of that country. And then we engage with the authorities in the country and see how to bring back our girls. A lot of our girls have been coming back. We've rescued so many girls. There was a viral video of Temitope Aworolo, and the good news is that she'll be arriving in Nigeria tomorrow. Temitope went viral on a video where she had a bloodied mouth inflicted on her by the madam's husband where she was working in Lebanon. After a while, she was accused of committing a attempted murder, and then of course she was arrested and all of that. But we made sure we worked together with NIDCOM, we worked with the embassy, we worked with Foreign Affairs, we worked with everyone to make sure that she was released and she'll be coming home tomorrow. So we brought back so many girls and many more will be coming from time to time, almost on a weekly basis.
Thank you very much for having you on the program. And we hope to have you some other time to discuss other issues regarding human rights as well, which are all under the NAPTIP view. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure. Alrighty.